Hello, my wonderful students, and welcome to this lecture on the Unix file system structure, sometimes referred to as the Unix directory structure. Now, before we get started, I want to preface this lecture by saying that the Unix operating system is a vast entity, and in this lecture we will only get into the practical components that you'll need to know as a data scientist. So, that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that you need to do is go ahead and pull up the terminal. We will do this by hitting Command Spacebar, typing in terminal, and go ahead and hitting enter. Once we have the terminal pulled up, let's go ahead and make the font larger. We'll hit Command equals a few times. And the first thing that I want you to notice is that we are currently at our home directory, and this is denoted by this little home sign right here. And our home directory is our initial login directory for Unix, and sometimes it is known as the default directory. Also, anytime that we are presently in a directory, it is called the current working directory. So for right now, we are both in our home directory and our current working directory. Now, I want you to go ahead and look up at my Unix file system renderings. We are currently right here in the Unix file system. Above the home directory is the root directory, and the root directory is the top of the directory hierarchy on any Unix system, and it is denoted by a backslash. I do not want to get into this directory because this is where beginners in the command line will actually start to cause problems for themselves, i.e. lose data, or in layman's terms, quote, blow their computer up. That being said, there's one quick caveat I want to make about blowing your computer up and working from the command line. I'm going to go ahead and type in a few random letters. And I don't want you to do this, but I just want you to watch me, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Notice that nothing happens. Computers only do what we tell them to do and what they have been pre-programmed to do. So they only act in a literal manner. If you just type in total jargons that don't make any sense and it doesn't recognize, it won't do anything. More likely than not, you are less likely to blow up your computer as a beginner than you are for just nothing to happen when you type in commands. So I want to alleviate some of the stress that can happen when people learn the command line, and that is why I brought this point up. Now I'm going to go ahead and type in clear to clear all this out. And again, I want you to come up to my renderings. I have a home directory here and a home directory here. I tried to make this little second rendering as a subset of this little square here. So the first thing that we want to do now is go into our desktop directory. And I want you to think of this entire directory system as something like a staircase. We're going to continue to walk up and down it, and you can also think that there are like a lot of staircases that you could take. We could take our first staircase, our second staircase, or our third staircase. And if we were to take our first staircase, then we could take another staircase down to this staircase, and so on and so forth. It'll make a little bit more sense in a second here, but let's go ahead and just learn our first command here. So in order to go from our home directory to our desktop directory, i.e. our home directory to our desktop directory, we're going to do cd spacebar desktop, and we can use the tab key to autocomplete. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and I'm going to go ahead and list out the contents by hitting ls. And you'll notice that we have directory 1 and directory 2. So before this lecture started, I made two directories, directory 1 and directory 2, right over here in my desktop environment, i.e. my desktop directory, which is where we are currently at. And you can see, and the reason I did this was to make this more simple, right? So we started at our home directory, then we went to our desktop directory, and we listed out the contents of this directory, which is our two folders. Exactly the same thing here. We started at our home directory, we toggled to our desktop directory with cd desktop, and then we went ahead and listed out the contents of that directory. In fact, there are two folders. And if I was to again do cd directory 1, which would be this little folder here, go ahead and hit tab autocomplete and type in 1. We'll go ahead and hit enter, and we will do ls. And this will actually name out this little file right here, this .py file. So, where are we in our directory system? Well, this is a good time to introduce the computing path. This is the location of a directory or file. So, if we didn't have this little directory 1 icon at the top of our terminal, there's actually a command we could do to figure out where we are. And it is pwd. print working directory. So go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see this last syntax here says directory 1. This tells us that we're in our directory 1. Now, what if we wanted to go upper directory? We actually want to go back to our desktop directory. Well, we can do cd ... You need to do cd spacebar ... And we'll go from directory 1 right here back to our desktop directory. And if I wanted to go from my desktop directory to my home directory, what do you think I do? Well, cd ... Enter. Alright, as a quick challenge to you all, I want you to go from our desktop directory back to our first directory, directory 1. How do I do that? Well, I go ahead and I do cd desktop because that's the first place we need to go. And then I can type in directory 1. So I can actually do this in one step. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And you'll see that we're right back in our directory 1. The last thing I want to talk about is getting directly back to our home directory in one command. And we can do this by hitting cd. cd, instead of doing cd ... will not step us back up, but it will take us directly back to the home directory. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And now we're at our home directory. So you can see that this is basically a stair-stepping structure, and we can go down a number of different paths. In this lecture, we went from our home directory to our desktop directory to our first directory, and we listed out the files of the contents of the directory 1. But if we went back to our home folder, which we're at now, and we did ls, we could go down a number of different paths. As you can see in my simple rendering, I only have 3 directories listed out. But you can see in real life, in my real desktop environment, my real home environment, there are a number of different directories. And within those directories, there are subdirectories. And within those subdirectories, there are more subdirectories. And then there are files inside those subdirectories. So what I really want you to take away is, you can think of Unix as kind of a stair-stepping structure. You can stair-step up and you can stair-step down. So this is one of the most important lectures of this course, so feel free to watch this lecture again. Just make sure you really understand it, because this entire course is really built on top of this Unix file system structure. So thank you all so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you all in the next lecture, and until then, happy learning.